Hello all and welcome to my presentation about human immunity. My name is Jamie Moore. In this slide there are the learning objectives that I will be covering. Infection can be defined as being an invasion of the body by microorganisms such as bacteria, viruses and parasites that are not normally present within the human body. There are four main causes. Infectious diseases typically have one of the four: bacteria, viruses, fungi, parasites. There are two ways of transmission: direct and indirect contact. Firstly, direct contact. This is broken into three categories. Person-to-person contact. This can be transferred in a number of ways, such as touching, kissing, coughing or sneezing, or through sexual contact. Animal-to-person occurs when an uninfected person is bitten or scratched by an infected animal. It also occurs through coming into contact with waste product of animals such as feces and urine. Mother to unborn child occurs through the pregnancy. The mother can pass the infection through the umbilical cord to the unborn child. Indirect contact can occur when someone sneezes onto an inanimate object, which is then later touched by a non-infected person. Insect bites are a common transfer method in some parts of the world. Mostly commonly is malaria with a mosquito bite. These carriers are known as vectors. Contaminated food such as undercooked meat or unwashed salad. The skin forms part of the system called the Inflammatory system. This is broken down into three sectors: the epidermis, the dermis, and the subcutaneous layer. The skin is the largest organ in the human body. The epidermis provides an initial mechanical barrier against the external environment in a form of waterproofing protective coating. The epidermis prevents or at least impedes penetration of mechanical organisms, chemical irritants or toxins, as well as absorbing and blocking solar and ionized radiation. As long as the skin remains unbroken, it provides the function of being the body's first line of defense. The digestive system has a series of effective barriers against infection, including stomach acid, pancreatic enzymes, bile, and intestinal secretions. Its powerful acidic and alkaline secretions act to protect the system. The pH of stomach acids is generally too low for most bacteria to survive. Similarly, in the small intestine, the pH is much higher, but still sufficient to destroy most pathogens. There are exceptions such as typhoid and chloria. The second line of defense is the inflammatory response, as you can see here. This is due to the injury to the skin or infection. The primary physical effect of the inflammatory response is for blood circulation to increase around the affected area. The cell walls surrounding the infected area develop gaps. This allows the immune response blood cells to pass. At the site of infection, a large supply of proteins and other various types of cells fuel the immune response. And finally, body heat around the infected area will increase, which in itself can have an antibiotic effect. What are antigens and pathogens? Well, a pathogen is an organism that causes disease. Pathogens can be bacteria or viruses, but can also be protozoans and fungi. Anything that's too small to be seen, but with the naked eye, that can cause an infection is termed as a pathogen. Antigens or immunogens are substances or toxins in your blood that can trigger your body to fight them. They can be a type of molecule, including proteins, carbohydrates, nucleic acids, or fats. A pathogen often needs an antigen to infect the body in the first place. The most commonly is a protein on the virus, such as influenza. The body's third line of defense is acquired immunity. This is not present at birth, instead it's learned. Acquired immunity is essentially a learnt response from the body's immune system, determining the best way to attack each antigen and begin to develop a memory for the antigen. Often called specific immunity because the immune system tailors it to its attacks to a specific antigen that the body has previously encountered. It has the ability to learn, adapt, and remember. Artificially acquired immunity can be conferred by two mechanisms: actively, intentionally exposed to a foreign antigen in a vaccine, and passively introduced preformed into the body to generate protective immune activity. An example of a natural passive immunity is a newborn receiving antibodies via breast milk from the mother. Leukocytes, or most commonly known as white blood cells, are a key element of the immune system and cells involved in defending the body against infection and foreign bodies. There are 5 types of leukocytes, which are all produced in bone marrow. These include neutrophils, lymphocytes, monocytes, eosinophils, and basophils. The acquired immune system in human is responsible for the destruction of pathogens once they have entered the body. During the first exposure of the pathogen, the acquired immune system first learns how to attack and destroy the pathogen. Initially, it is effective against infections it has not previously encountered, but once it has created a response, the protective response in future is made quicker and with greater force. The cells of the acquired immune system are mainly the B cells and T cells. Immunoglobulins are known as antibodies, which are proteins that are bound to antigens. Antibodies have many uses within the body. These include targeting the infection, recruitment of immune cells, neutralization of toxins, and the removal of antigens. The typical immunoglobulin is made up of 4 chains. 2 of the 4 chains have slightly greater mass, so the immunoglobulin molecule can be said to comprise 2 heavier chains and 2 lighter chains. These are arranged in a Y-shaped configuration as illustrated here. There are 5 types of immunoglobulins, the first being the IgG, which is most abundant in white blood cells. It is the only type that is transferred across the placenta from mother to the fetus, providing the unborn child with some protection from diseases. The second is IgA, playing an important role in the cellular defense of the soft, moist mucosal surfaces of the body, such as the mouth. Thirdly is IgM. This immunoglobulin has a different structure comprised of 5 normal immunoglobulins joined at the base. This is first to be synthesized in the antibody response. Fourth is IgE. This molecule is only present in low levels in a healthy individual. These increase in response to a parasitic infection or allergic reaction. Too much IgE can actively cause hay fever. Lastly is IgD. IgD functions as a B cell antigen receptor and may participate in B cell maturation, maintenance, activation, and silencing. Self-tolerance is an immune system's ability to distinguish between self and non-self, therefore enabling only the non-self to be attacked. The immune system achieves its goal through mechanisms of antigens. 2 of the most important factors in allowing the immune system to distinguish between self and non-self are the major histocompatibility complexes I1 and 2, or MCH1 and MCH2. Along with human leukocyte antigen gene complex, human cells usually display specific types of antigens, which the immune system recognizes as being self and deals with accordingly. When the immune system encounters the antigen of the red blood cell on its surface, it will not attack it or signal it to be attacked because this antigen is recognized as self. The human immune system does not have a single and consistent level of response to foreign antigens, as the level of response varies significantly. As you can see here, it's identifying self and identifying as non-self. Hypersensitivity is an immune disorder and is categorized by an exaggerated unnecessary immune response. An important example of hypersensitivity is allergies. An external agent provokes an unnecessary defense reactions. An example of these are pollen and hay fever, or peanut and food allergies. The second example of autoimmunity, in this case, the immune system attacks cells, organs, or other structures of its own body, mistaking them for foreign elements. As a result, these particular organs become inflamed and are damaged. Now we're going to talk about the rejection of transplanted organs. First, we should look at what an organ transplantation is. An organ transplantation is a medical procedure in which an organ is removed from one body and placed in the body of a recipient to replace a damaged or missing organ. However, the immune system can become a barrier to the transplantation process. This is due to the immune system creating effective mechanisms to combat foreign agents. When a person receives an organ from someone else during the transplant surgery, that receiving person's immune system may recognize it as foreign. This often occurs because the immune system detects an antigen on the cell of the organ which is different. There are 3 types of rejection. Hyperacute rejection occurs a few minutes after the transplant when the antigens are completely unmatched. The tissue must be removed right away so the recipient does not die. This type of rejection is seen when the recipient is given the wrong type of blood. For example, a person given type A blood when he or she is a type B. Acute rejection may occur anytime from the first week after the transplantation to 3 months after. All recipients have some amount of acute rejection. Finally is chronic rejection. This can take place over many years. The body's constant immune response against the new organ slowly damages a transplant tissue or organ. And you can see the different types of organ transplantation that can occur. Now we're going on to autoimmune disorders. The first disorder I'm going to talk about is rheumatoid arthritis. It's a condition where your immune system attacks its own joints. The main symptoms of rheumatoid arthritis are joint pain, swelling and stiffness, as well as problems that are affecting the joints. Some people with rheumatoid arthritis have more general symptoms such as tiredness and lack of energy, a high temperature, sweating, a poor appetite, or even weight loss. The disease may also have flare-ups and remissions. Treatments include medicine that can take a long term to relieve symptoms and slow the progression of the conditions, physiotherapy and surgery to correct any joint problems that may occur that have developed. Another autoimmune system is lupus. Lupus is a disease that occurs when your body's immune system attacks its own tissues and organs. Inflammation caused by lupus can affect many different body systems, including your joints, skin, kidneys, blood cells, brain, hearts, and lungs. Lupus can be difficult to diagnose because its signs and symptoms often mimic those of other ailments. The most common signs and symptoms include fatigue, fever, joint pain or stiffness, butterfly-shaped rash on the face that covers the cheeks, shortness of breath and headaches. Potential triggers include sunlight, infections, and medications. Treatments can include anti-inflammatory medicines such as ibuprofen, hydroxychloroquine for fatigue, and steroid tablets or injections. And here you can see an image of what rheumatoid arthritis is, and here there are some symptoms of lupus. Now we're going to talk about the immune response to vaccination, but first we should define what a vaccination is. Vaccination involves exposing the body's immune system to a weakness or harmless version of the pathogen in order to stimulate white blood cells to produce antibodies with the intention of providing immunity against a specific pathogen. Vaccines can contain live pathogens, harmless fragments of the pathogens, toxins produced by pathogens, and dead pathogens. Vaccines are used to initiate the production of memory cells without causing the infection. There are 2 main types of vaccines. There are live vaccines, which are derived from viruses or bacteria which are weakened in the laboratory. When the live vaccination is used, a relatively small dose of the virus or bacteria is given, which replicates in the body and creates enough virus or bacteria to stimulate an immune response. Inactivated vaccines are vaccines which are produced by growing the bacteria or virus in a culture media, then inactivating it with heat and or chemicals. Inactivated vaccines are not themselves alive, so cannot replicate. Therefore, these vaccines cannot cause disease from infection. Inactivated vaccines can tend to require multiple doses in general. The first dose does not produce protective immunity, but only primes the immune system for a future dose. A protective immune response develops after the second or third dose. Immunological memory is the ability of the immune system to respond to a pathogen that has been previously encountered quicker and more effectively than the first encounter. The primary response is when a pathogen is encountered for the first time, which is the primary response. It takes time for the antigen to be identified by the B lymphocytes and for the appropriate antibody to be produced by the plasma cells, which allows time for the infection to take hold and cause the associated symptoms. The secondary response is when the same pathogen is encountered for the second time. The memory cells recognize the pathogen and it's produced high quantities of antibodies, which often fights the infection before the symptoms are seen. Now we're going to talk about the benefits of vaccination. Immunization and vaccinations help protect against serious disease. Viral diseases cannot be cured with antibiotics but can only be controlled by immunization. Vaccination can eradicate disease, an example being smallpox as of 1979. It also prevents childhood mortality. Before the introduction of vaccines, childhood deaths were more common from diseases such as measles, polio, and whooping cough. Although these diseases still exist, vaccination provides greater protection against serious complications from these infections. Measles was first vaccinated against in the UK in the late 1960s with the introduction of the MMR vaccination in 1988. After 2 doses of the MMR, around 99% of people will be protected against measles and rubella. If we compare measles death from 1940 to present, we can see the effects of vaccination had against measles in the UK. In 1940, there were 857 deaths, and in recent data from 2020, there were only 1 death, which was an adult having a late effect of measles. This proves on a global scale the benefits of immunization and vaccination programs worldwide, ranging from savings in healthcare, from not treating these diseases, and extends life expectancies and reduces death. We're going to look at the concept of herd immunity. Firstly, we need to remember that the contagious disease is spread from one person to another. When a high percentage of the population is vaccinated, it is more difficult for contagious disease to spread because there are very few people within the population who become infected. An example is if someone with measles is surrounded by people who are vaccinated against measles, the disease cannot easily be passed on. As a result, it quickly disappears without having a worldwide effect. Herd immunity can effectively stop the spread of some contagious disease in a given community. It is particularly crucial for protecting people who cannot be vaccinated, including children who are too young to be vaccinated, people with immune system problems, and those who are too ill to receive vaccines, such as cancer patients. Many vaccination programs exist in the UK for children and adults to ensure that the vaccination for influenza is made as convenient and accessible as possible to prevent it from being widely spread. Children are vaccinated through the various stages throughout their childhood, which are carried out by healthcare professions, whether it be a nurse or a GP. There are factors which affect vaccination uptake. These are reasonable, logical, but complex at the same time. The first being there is a seasonal variability in the prevalence of many infectious diseases such as norovirus, the flu, and bronchiolitis. These infectious diseases can be very serious for certain groups in society, such as the very young, very old, or the disabled. There are other unavoidable factors, such as not giving a vaccine to somebody who is already recovering from another illness. As you can see here, with no immunization, the chances of spread is a lot greater. With immunization, with the one contagious and the multiple immunized, the chances of it spreading is very little. As you can see here, these are the references I used for the presentation. Thank you for your time.